Well, hey guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. This is, I guess, going to be an intro to this project. I'm wanting to build a really nice 026. I've kind of been putting this off for a little bit. I've kind of been gathering parts. I have a bunch of parts here, but I'm also missing a lot of parts, or was. So we have a handful of aftermarket parts, some OE parts. Right now what we've got is a good sound bottom end. The bearings in it looked immaculate, felt immaculate, so I just put 2 new seals in it. And actually the seals that came out of it were good. The only thing I didn't like about them, they were drove in too far and they were a little crooked, so I'm assuming somebody just drove them in with the socket, which is perfectly fine. I've done that on a lot of saws. On this particular saw, I have the seal drivers for about every Stihl chainsaw. I need to pick up some of the Husky ones, but I've honestly never had a problem just picking those in with the socket. But some of these can be a little tricky. That one actually picks in a little bit past that flange. And this one, it needs to sit about almost flush with that bearing. It actually drives back into the bearing. Like I said, I have the actual drivers. This bottom end's nice and smooth, just the right amount of drag on the seals. If you tear one apart and just the weight of the piston alone will make it, the connecting rod drop, you probably do a set of crank seals. Not probably, but you do a set of crank seals. We got a new wrist pin bearing. I actually think someone had rebuilt the saw at one point in time. The base gasket just barely was stuck to the bottom, and it had killer compression and what looked like a set of new rings in it. So I have the piston though. It's pretty daggone wore out. I would not have put a piston like this back in unless it was something they just did not make anymore. And this has been run through the ultrasonic. It's an 026 Pro. You can tell by the decomp. Someone will tell me the non-pros have it too, but not from what I've seen. If you got one that's got that kind of rock, or when you get things sitting at an idle or port throttle, and it sounds like you're shaking up a bag of cans, put a piston in it, especially if it's someone else's saw. I've seen people send other people on this platform saws, and they get them running and it just sounds god awful when they let it go out. Just because you get it running and it'll tune in don't mean it's right. If it's making a ton of piston slap, throw a piston in it, guys. It just ain't worth the hassle. They're not that expensive. You can even pick up an OE one pretty decent. But you probably see the Farmer Tech box back here. The pistons have come a long way. I've not had a problem with them. Maybe one in the last, I'm going to say about 8 years I've been using Farmer Tech stuff, and it was a really early piston. Get our rings out. By now maybe you've seen an unboxing video of some parts, some cutting videos. I'll try to keep rolling out content twice a week. The schedule I'm wanting to try to stick to is Sunday and Thursday at 7 o'clock. Now let's see how this aftermarket piston, about every piston you get for these things is domed. Just when I cut the combustion chamber, I'll try to cut it at a little angle. If we can get it to match that, get our mandrel made and cutter made to match that, would be awesome. Or maybe even chuck this up and make a flat top, but it'll probably run better with the dome set up, honestly, as far as, but that's a pretty nice piston. The edges on it are a little sharp, but we're going to modify the piston anyway. They're really not that bad, honestly. But what we're going to do here is I'm going to get the flywheel on it, and somebody, either this key slot had a lot of slop in it. I don't think anyone's messed with the flywheel key. But there's enough slack there to where we can get about a 4-degree timing advance on it. But let's see how this one fits the cylinder. That one's pretty good. I can make it rock, but it's nothing like that piston that came out of it was. So what we're gonna do is get this new wrist pin out. Let's check the fitment on that. That's actually pretty dang good. It's about how I like them. Arrow to the front, but don't have an arrow locating pins to the back unless it's something kind of new and modern, and some of those can be weird. And have a locating pin up near the front too. That's pretty good fitment on there, feels good. And the connecting rod and crankshaft of this thing felt amazing. I wanted to build a 260. I swear I think I've got 3 sets of look like to be pretty nice 260 crankcases. But I did not have a 260. Had to look at some settings there. I was looking, things looked a little underexposed, which would have been a good reason. The camera itself was underexposed. I do that a lot from outside. It's really bright. We'll dial back the exposure compensation, which just means that we make the picture look a little darker. But if the first few minutes of this look kind of dark, I do apologize. Alright. Ain't using them backs, mess it up. That's all she needs, a few little bumps, guys. And that flywheel had been ran through the ultrasonic. So now what I want to do is we're going to find a couple cylinder bolts, throw the cylinder on, maybe see where Squish is at. Kind of get a ballpark of what kind of machine work I've got to do. Maybe show you guys some of the parts to this. We may port map it where it's at right now and see what's up. I had all intentions of doing a case split, but these cases, when I got them out, they were the nicer of the 026 cases I had. And when I pulled it down, I could tell it had been rebuilt. I hadn't had a lot of time on it, so why do work you don't have to do? The bearings were good, are awesome. There's no play. People go on about rock on a cylinder after you've done machine work. You guys may have seen that. I've seen people, if you've got one and it's rocking up to where you could throw a 50 thou, you've probably seen that, maybe 50 thou feeler gauge under it. Yeah, you probably messed up when you done your machine work, but even the factory cylinders, you gotta think, guys, this thing's been heat cycled 1,000 times. And it's aluminum, this is magnesium. It's not a solid piece of steel. Things are gonna warp. It's why there's machine shops. 9 times out of 10, if an automobile gets so hot to the point it pops a head gasket, your head's warped. Same deal with these saws. If they get to where the base gasket's leaking, you can about bet you at least need to block sand a little off the bottom of that cylinder. I've seen people take a big piece of sandpaper and put it on a flat surface such as that and actually do. I've seen 4-cylinder and V8 cylinder heads slid back and forth on a big piece of sandpaper, believe it or not, and decked back down. But the proper way would be to take it to a machine shop and have it resurfaced. But hey, you do what you gotta do. My point is if you machine one and it's got 5 thousandths of rock in it, don't lose any sleep over it, because your cases may not be true. Well, we don't have a squish band slapper. Let me get some solder out and a caliper, and we'll check this out. Alright guys, I'm going to start with some thicker stuff. See what's up. Usually with this cylinder, especially if you use a meteor piston, you end up with having to cut the squish band for clearance. That's what I was hoping, that it would slap and I'd have to cut some out of the band. This one's going to be tight. I'm probably going to have to locate some thinner solder, but surprisingly I think it's going to mash her down. But She got her mesh pretty dang thin, guys. So with that solder measuring it, I'm getting 27, 28 thou. I'm going to find my thinner solder and we'll give it a check again. This one's just around 30 thousandths electrical solder. The other one's actually a silver solder, although it doesn't work very well. We're not even touching that one, so that 28 thou was probably close to being accurate. There we go. I bet we're closer to 20 thousandths. I had it tilted up too high and it was going up into the top of the chamber and stopping, but we've got that mashed down pretty dang thin. I'll tear out that caliper every time I pick it up. And we've got about what I thought, pretty dang tight. Too tight. Okay guys, I'm going to stress this in this video again. Use the thinnest solder you can use. That 60 thou silver solder I was using was compressing like 27, 28 thou. We checked it with the 30 thou electrical solder and we have 8 thousandths squish. So again, use the thinnest solder that you have that you can use to get that reading. Alright guys, let's map this thing out. I've done got the degree finder on there. Some of these cylinders time really well, some of them don't, if that makes sense. The 260 cylinders, in my opinion, for a small saw, time horrible. I've got a 10 thou feeler gauge under the piston on the intake port side. That's what I check every port opening at, is 10 thousandths on every saw. Airflow under compression starts around 50 thousandths, but on a 2 cycle it's a little much, I think. Alright, so we got total intake opening of 135 degrees exactly, so I'm going to set this back to around 67 and a half, or as close as I can get it to that. That's pretty daggone close right there. Let's recheck. Intake opening of 67 and a half at 10 thousandths, and I have that trimmed down because some ports are oval, not all of them square, not many of them square really, and you need that gauge to be kind of thin to get an accurate reading. Exhaust reef opening. This is one of the good ones. We got 100 and a half transfer ports. They should open 20, 21 degrees later, if my memory serves me correct, and they are staggered a little bit. I've got that pick right, just feeling right when it opens. And they'll stagger down toward the intake sides where they'll open earliest. $123. That's about on par with most of these I've done. Like I said, you will get some of the newer stuff. Some of the 026 cylinders kind of time horrible. Some of them time good. It is so for a 48.5 cc saw, which is what this is. Those numbers are okay. You know, they were going for high RPM on this. Never was really built to be a torque monster, but I'm thinking we can get that exhaust reef some bit lower. Man, I'd love to have it around 106, but I don't think I can machine that much off of it. The base of these things are super thin. But what we'll be doing in the next video on this, maybe making a mandrel. is, yeah, we're going to give the lathe a little love. But probably it for this one, guys. Kind of an intro to this video. They were really, really nice. I actually only had 2 handles here apart from a whole nother saw I've had here for a long time. But that was the better of the 2 tanks. They were both 026 Pro tanks, but really wanted to build a 260 but didn't want twisty caps on the tank and flippy caps on the oil tank. I don't know, I think I'd mentioned that in a short, but I've got a couple 260 starter covers. We might do that though. I'll be running 260 plastic on it, because any of the 026 plastic I have is just mangled, looks horrible, and I have some OEM and some aftermarket 260 plastics. So we may do 260 plastic, 260 recoil, and just have a 260 with screw-in caps, which is what 9 people out of 10 like anyway. But that's going to be the deal with this. It'll still turn high RPMs even when we get the exhaust reflower. My Echo 4910, which is like comparing apples to oranges here. It's a much more modern design on the transfer ports and things. I have a 106 exhaust reef on that. It's actually a little past 106. And that saw's tuned at like 15.2, so exhaust reef plays a role in how high they'll turn, but it's not the end all be all on it. Your intake timing has to do with it, your transfer duration. It all is one big part of the puzzle. But anyway, guys, that's going to be a wrap here. Next video, we'll probably get into some machine work on it and get that knocked out and out of the way. And we may do some grinding on this one on camera. We'll just have to see. But anyway, guys, y'all have a good one.